Hey, what's up, everybody? Welcome to the first game of our in-depth Hunter analysis. We're going to be playing against the Paladin, and in GVG, this one was one of the worst matchups. Now, however, I feel like the ratio, you get less Consecrates, you get less Guardian of Kings, so I feel like overall the matchup has become a little bit softer. It's not as anti-aggro as it used to be, less shielded mini-bots, less True Silvers, less Consecrate, less Guardian of Kings. Just in general, there is just a little bit more leeway for the Hunter to sneak in the victory. As we see this mulligan, it's not really good. We are on the play. That means, for card game veterans, the play will be clear, but for people who are unfamiliar with that terminology, you have the play and you have the draw, and that's just fancy wording for saying player 1, player 2. So if you are on the play, that means that you're gonna have 3 cards and no coin. If you're on the draw, that means you're gonna have 4 cards and a coin. So being the player that is on the play, you have to fish for a 2-drop for sure. That's your highest priority. You need a 2-drop, and very preferably you should have a 1-drop as well. So that means that a 3-drop is just simply too expensive to keep. So you might say, oh, that's nice, we already have a 2-drop, we have a quick shot. That's not quite correct, is it? Let's say that our opponent does not coin out a 2-drop. That quick shot is not going to do anything. It's going to sit into your hand, and you're going to have to hero power on turn 2. So minions, cards that you can actually play on turn 2, regardless of what your opponent plays, is what we consider a 2-drop. So we ship it all away, we see what we get, because as you guys remember from the draft portion of this analysis series, we constructed the deck to be a curve hunter. That means that it's our goal to hit that 1-drop, hit that 2-drop, hit that 3-drop, and go from there. And there we go, beautiful mulligan. We do hit the Worgen Infiltrator and the Flame Juggler, and we have the Dwarf for turn 4, so now all we need to do is hit a 3-drop, but we have enough time for that. We're going to play our 1-drop, then we're still going to draw a card, then we're going to play our 2-drop, then we're also going to draw a card, so it's a fairly good chance that we will not have to hero power on turn 3. Okay, so our opponent plays a Cogmaster. You might say, well, that's not really too threatening. We could just play our Flame Juggler and pass. However, if our opponent ends up playing a shielded mini-bot on turn 2, you really do not want your Flame Juggler to die to the Cogmaster. So the right ordering in this case is to sacrifice the Worgen first, because whether we deal 1 damage to the Cogmaster doesn't matter for the trade, and then we have guaranteed 1 damage in the face. So small ordering, but could end up to be important. Let's say you have perfect lethal at one point, then you're going to be happy that you did that 1 damage early on. Looks like we picked up a Yeti, another turn 4 play, not the ideal curve. Okay, so this is great for us. Our opponent had a 1-drop, but no 2-drop, so he has the hero power. We pick up a 2-drop. That is perfectly fine to play on turn 3 if your opponent used the hero power. That's a very good draw for us. We missed the Joust, but it's really not that important. As I said in the draft section, the King's Elec is still a Bloodfen Raptor, so really no problem with losing that Joust. It's just a huge upside if you do win it. And our opponent plays an Arcane Nullifier. I want to illustrate how good it is to have the initiative. With initiative, we mean that you are the player that is dictating the trades. You say, okay, this minion attacks this minion attacks that minion. And that initiative is bought through having a 1-drop, a 2-drop, a 3-drop, We get to choose what attacks what. And now, because of that initiative, we can use our Dark Iron Dwarf onto our King's Elec, kill his Arcane Nullifier, just in a 1-for-1 trade. That means that you have a 2-mana advantage right here in that trade, because your 2-drop killed his 4-drop. So that's pretty significant, and you see how the board is just snowballing out of control. At the end of turn 4, we've got 6/6 stats on the board. So he goes into his turn 4, and it's virtually impossible for him to match those stats already. And because we have initiative, we're going to keep getting preferable trades, which means that stats lead is just going to snowball out of control even further. And that's going to cause us to just be able to attack the opponent's face at one point to bring him down to 0 very fast. Okay, this is quite of an interesting turn. There's not like a great play here. Something I noted during the game was that if we hadn't sacrificed the King's Alec, we could have played a Ram Wrangler, but unfortunately the Flame Juggler didn't have 3 damage. So there was no option to save the Ram Wrangler the turn before. Now what you do have here is a decision to make. You could use both your minions to kill the Yeti and play your Yeti. You could use Arcane Shot on the Yeti, sacrifice the Dark Iron Dwarf, and then play your Yeti. But those plays lose a lot of damage. What I want to do is just go face with both of our minions and put the Mechanical Yeti down and pass, save the Arcane Shot for utility, and get the 6 damage in on his face, because as, you know, being a hunter, you do have to take a risk here and there. What is the risk here? The risk would be a Blessing of Kings or an Argent Protector. If he has a Blessing of Kings, he kills our Mechanical Yeti for free. If he has an Argent Protector, he can kill our Dark Iron Dwarf for free. So usually you do not want to take this risk, but the trait was just too nasty. And there we go. He does end up with that advantageous trait for him. Divine Shield, very strong on Paladin. So it's going to be quite a difficult first game. And you see that we are continuing in this trend of just trying to get enough face damage down. I was considering like maybe there was a play where we used Arcane Shot or Quick Shot. We could have used Quick Shot on the Yeti, traded in the 2-2, Arcane Shot to 2-2, played a Web Spinner, 2-4, Hero Power, and go face for 4. That wasn't terrible, but it loses a ton of damage. So instead we're going with the Web Spinner and Ram Wrangler play. See if we can get lucky with the Ram Wrangler, perhaps summon a charge minion, or just get some solid stats on the board. Unfortunately, it's an Angry Chicken. So I would say that we are in trouble now. And because of, it's really this Angry Chicken that triggers me here to say, okay, I want another 6 damage into his face, because this game is looking very grim. We are going to lose board control very fast, because our opponent already had an advantageous trade with that Divine Shield, plus we just now got somewhat screwed by RNG and we got an Angry Chicken rather than say a minion with 4/4 stats, a Core Rager for instance, or you know, maybe even, you know, Malorn or a King Crush, you know. So those are the things that trigger me to deal the maximum amount of face damage here. Now the 2-2 into the 2-2 would have been a decent hedge against Consecration. I completely agree. But if we make that trade, I don't know, I feel like all damage is really important at this point, especially if you have 5 damage burn in the hand plus the hero power next turn. That means that you have 7 damage on demand, which means that all you need to do is another 8 damage from the board forward. Or just with your hero power as well. He does have the Consecration, so we played into both Argent Protector and Consecration, and he had both of them, so that is unfortunate. Okay, so here our opponent makes kind of a greedy play. I do not agree with this play at all. If we had a silence, this was another 7 damage to his face, which would have been as good as lethal. Unfortunately, we have nothing of the sort, and we have to use our Mechanical Yeti to kill his ghoul. That way we'll see what spare part we get, and we'll make our decision based off what spare part we get. So we get a freeze. A freeze is pretty decent. I believe that Epiphany here wanted to use the Animal Companion, which wasn't terrible, you know, get the random factor out of the way. But the Tundra Rhino allows us, like, the Tundra Rhino gives us a very, like, it gives us the option to charge out the Animal Companion next turn. So in case that it is a Leok or a Leok or a Misha, you're going to get to deal extra face damage here. So a better play for me would be to use the Arcane Shot on the 4-1, freeze the Yeti, and then go face with the Tundra Rhino, bringing him down to 13 HP. You preserve your Quick Shot, and you have a 66% chance to charge out a 4 damage minion next turn. So he goes to 13, you have 2 damage plus the 4, that's 6, goes to 7, 7, you have your 3, plus hero power. You can bring him down to 2 HP next turn. So that's really not a bad deal if we're trying to chase our opponent down here. So you can see that just we are losing in terms of card advantage, but we do have that pressure on his life total right now. And that's something that as a hunter you always need to look ahead into the game and see, like, how are we going to close the game out? Am I going to fall short? Is my opponent going to be able to race me before I can kill him? Because obviously, if you do not look at your opponent's board at all, he gets to do advantageous trades, and obviously he will be ahead on the board, which means that he'll win the race. Oh, so we know our opponent has a Tuskar Jouster in his deck, so at the moment we're hoping, like, ooh, please don't draw that. That would be really bad for us. Opponent goes face with the weapon. That's fine. I don't think it's a huge difference. Alright. So the first thing we do here is use the Animal Companion, hope for a Misha or a Huffer, 4 damage. Unfortunately, it's a Leok, so only half the damage, and we did, kind of lose the roll there. So no great RNG this game, but that's fine. It's nothing super big here. We can still just use the Shadowton Cleric on the Leok, deal 3 phase damage, and then hero power. At this point, you just can't afford to clear your opponent's minions. There's no need to quickshot them in the face here for the draw. You want to maximize your damage output, and that quickshot is probably still good to give us a draw next turn, but preferably lethal, That is the preferred ending to this game. Okay, so our opponent did something here that I wasn't entirely sure whether it was correct. So the Troc kills the Leok. That seems fairly straightforward. And then the Yeti kills the Shattered Sun, I'd say, to preserve damage, because the Shattered Sun is going down to 3 damage. But what our opponent does instead is he takes down the Rhino while taking the face damage, and then he heals up with a Darkscale Healer. Now I understand his reasoning. His reasoning is, oh, this way if he has a Savannah High main, he can't charge it out. Ha ha ha, I'm so smart. But he did just leave 3 damage on the board while taking another 2 himself, whereas he could have just used the Yeti into the Shattered Sun. Oh, let me just click this when the screen isn't all shiny. If our opponent had just used the Yeti into the 3-2 and his weapon either in our face or just not at all, I feel like he has a lot better chance to win, because he will be at 10 HP here and we have a Rhino. That's only 5 here plus 2, that's only 7. Our opponent had 9, 11 damage here, plus 4, 15, plus the lance. So our opponent was 1 damage of lethal then. So anything that he drew, a King's, a Seal of Champion, anything, Abusive Sergeant, whatever. But, that wasn't the case, and sometimes you just have to use it. You have to use your opponent's, debatable misplay to your advantage. So there we go, guys. Perfect lethal. He put himself dead to quickshot or kill command, which we had. So GG, well played. We made a couple decisions that backfired. We chose to not play around the Archon Protector, and because of that, we were in a position where we couldn't play around Consecrate. Our opponent had both cards. Then the Ram Wrangler gave us some bad RNG with the Angry Chicken. But being the hunter, there's always that alternative win condition, which is just bringing them low enough and finishing them off with that hero power. All right, guys. As a fun first game, rather challenging. Normally the first game is a bit safer, but we were fairly close to losing this one. So guys, I look forward to seeing you tomorrow for game number 2. All right, guys. I'll see you then.